times they have changed as Bob Dylan predicted. There was a time when one approached a Mick Jagger-Keith Richards interview with fear and trepidation as they lashed the backs of the establishment. Today they are older, perhaps wiser, and certainly kinder to the world around them. Now instead of the old Fab Gear whack routine and solicitous inquiries after Ken Dodd's health, as I enter their recording studios, I am met with smiles and an orange juice is pressed upon me by the ever-courteous Brian Jones while Keith remarks that he has not seen me in a long time. "Please help yourself to a drink at any time," smiles Mick, indicating the cardboard carton stacked with juices and cokes. Bill smiles a slightly sadder smile and only Charlie remains immortal, eyes wide open as he drums but seeing nothing, and talking still of John Coltrane and Dizzy Gillespie. Outside the studio are parked the Mercedes and the Rolls and the Aston Martin, the material results of 5 long-gone years' hard work. Ian Stewart is still there, their big-hearted road manager, still leading with his chin shirt ever agape revealing the hairy chest and blue jeans, displaying something new in psychedelic white patterns. Keith is clad in one of those unbelievable blue creations with many other colors that billow from his arms and fall in fringes almost to the floor. He sits tuning his guitar and appeals desperately to the ceiling. "Someone give me an E," he says. Jagger sits perched upon a high stool in the control room surveying the music makers with an indulgent air. His leg twisted about the lower struts of the seat and leaning forward so that his spine sticks out through the thin purple shirt. Marianne Faithfull sits cool and detached reading a copy of a treatise on white magic from which she takes time out to talk a little with me. "I love the Supremes' new record Reflections and Traffic single," she enthuses. "Mick is producing some tracks for a new album for me. You heard one track as you came in. It's written by the incredible string band." I expressed an interest in the small book in her shopping bag written by poet-philosopher Omar Khayyam and she gave it to me. The whole atmosphere in the studio was one of a friendly, unhurried meeting between 5 old friends who were not going to rush into anything that was not their best. There was hardly one discordant quote to ruffle the serenity, except when I deigned to mention the Monkees and the Beatles in the same breath and Keith's lip curled in the old familiar manner. Mick explained a little of the new direction in which the Stones are moving along with many other top groups. "It really began with the Beatles' Revolver album," Mick said. "It was the beginning of an appeal to the intellect. Once, you could tell how well a group was doing by the reaction to their sex appeal, but the days of the hysteria are fading and for that reason there will never be a new Stones or a new Beatles. We are moving after minds and so are most of the new groups." He played me one of their new compositions, She's a Rainbow, which is augmented by strings for inclusion on the next album, and a 15-minute backing track where guitars, piano, tambourine, tom-toms, bass and drums are thrown together to provide what Brian calls India with a touch of the Arabian Nights. Brian was planning an excursion to Libya and indicated the glossy brochure he had bought on that country. "Look at these fantastic Roman remains," he enthused. "I'm going to find somewhere in the middle of the Sahara where there are no photographers." As Brian left the control room, sound engineer Glyn Johns extolled the Stones' musicianship. "Brian's incredible," he said. "Did you hear that harp on the last track? He played that. Just picked it up in the studio. He came in last night and there was this little child's plastic ukulele lying around. It's almost impossible to get a tune out of those things, but he did. He seems to be able to play anything he picks up, from saxophone to dulcimer." A backing track was laid down and the Stones set about making music with Brian isolated in one portion of the studio playing tom-toms. Jagger and Glyn Johns talked about fixed and round sounds and there was a brief hitch while some distortion was removed from Bill's bass guitar. He was apparently working too close to the bridge of his bass. A Stones recording session nowadays begins about 7 p.m. and rolls on until the early hours of the morning. Ian Stewart sends out for supper about midnight, and quantities of pork chops and chicken are consumed along with pie and ice cream. A great deal of their music is produced spontaneously in the studio as they improvise on a theme or idea that one or the other has created. A strange assortment of people drift in and out of the studio, including policemen who lamely excuse their presence by saying, "I've never been in a recording studio before," or "Your door was open." The Stones accept this in stoic silence and anyone who is not a terrific nuisance, as Jagger described it, is allowed to stay. Just what is going to turn up on this next Stones LP is still somewhat confusing, but there are likely to be quite a few surprises. Marianne, for example, revealed that Mick has a book on nursery rhymes and he was considering working some of them into the album. Brian Jones had a thing about some 1930s discs owned by his father on which there was an organist called Reginald Fort.
Here's that wizard of the organ, Reginald Fort.
This new
BBC organ really is the...
In between times, Charlie talked to Mick of Mick's meeting with Maharishi Yogi and wanted to know what Mick asked him. Mick said vaguely, "Oh, about the church and religion." Charlie was skeptical about the little portrait that Maharishi carried of his own guru. "It's only something to help him remember he is carrying the thoughts on from another," Mick explained. There was a heated discussion in the control room between Glyn Johns, who abhors bullfights although he has never been to one, and Brian Jones interceded on my behalf for the defense. "It is not a sport. That is an English misconception," Brian said. "It is a spectacle in the same way a Greek tragedy is a spectacle. It is life as it is death and sad as it is happy." Glyn was not to be convinced that the spectacle of any animal in pain was a desirable one, and Marianne finally made a profound remark about nature at the mercy of mankind, and we all forgot the subject. Keith had acquired a cap during the evening's recording with 3 badges resplendent on the peak. "The badge with the 2 white strokes stands for equal rights," he explained. The photograph in the other badge is of the Russian astronaut who was burned to death on re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. The last badge depicted a latter-day Hollywood blonde in surrealistic backgrounds, and that, said Keith, is lovely Rita. Charlie entered the control room to conduct a bewildering conversation about a session musician with perfect pitch whom Glyn knew. Mick revealed that Glyn was shortly to be married. Glyn revealed that Mick had learnt all his production techniques at his knee. About 2 a.m. I made to go while everyone was still being so nice. Just as I left through the door, the idea of asking Keith to insult someone, just once for old time's sake, occurred, but I fear it would have been futile. This is the year of the nice, and saving Omar Khayyam's memory. The Rolling Stones having rolled, roll on.